Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint a beautiful branch with some berries and leaves on it. It's a nice warm-up painting. I've got a big still life I'm getting ready to set up, and I just wanted to break in with something something fun. And the colors we're going to use today, by the way, I'm using the Turner watercolors from my signature set at Jerry's Artorama, and I just got word today that they are back in stock. And actually all of my signature sets are right now in stock, so if you've been waiting to get the Turner set or the Lucas or the Watermix oil set, go grab them now because they are back in stock and they usually sell out in a couple of days. But of course you can use whatever paints you have. Don't feel pressured to go and buy them. If you have paints you love, use what you have. We're going to use Quin Magenta, which is, I'm just going to point to them on my swatches in case you're matching at home with something you already have. Quin Magenta, Permanent Scarlet, Permanent Gamboge. We're going to use Turquoise, and that looks an awful lot like the Cobalt Teal in, say, Daniel Smith or Core. Burnt Umber. And we're going to use Pthalo Green, and sometimes Pthalo Green is called Viridian Hue. So I was just kind of playing around with those colors. I really liked what I was getting, and I thought that would be a nice combination to go for. I'm going to use a number 12 round. You can use anywhere between an 8 and a 12, whatever's comfortable for you. You could even go with a 6 if you wanted to. And I'm using 100% cotton paper. This sketchbook is by Renaissance. I really like it. I'm not sure if you can find it in the United States. April over at A Little Creative sent me this, but I don't know if she's stocking it yet. But if you live in Europe, you probably have access to this pad of paper. But use any sort of cotton watercolor paper is going to work fine for this. And we're going to start off, and we're working on dry paper. I'm going to take some burnt umber. And burnt umber is a little bit cooler in temperature than burnt sienna. It doesn't have that warm, that reddishness to it. And we're going to add just a touch of our turquoise to that. It's going to give us a beautiful muted, almost sagey gray-brown color. And I want to make sure I don't have any water on the ferrule of my brush, so I want to load my brush up really well, but I want to make sure I don't have any drips of water on the ferrule that can interrupt my line here. And what I want to do is put a line going from kind of up here, kind of off to the edge. So this is going to just really fill up our page with beautiful leaves and berries. So when I'm trying to get a really fine line, I generally will work at a 90-degree angle with my paper. So I know that can be a little tricky to show on screen where I film over my work. So I'm going to tip my paper. You don't need to tip your paper when you're doing this. I'm just doing this so you can see how my brush interacts with my paper. So I'm going to start up here. And I am just going to bring a line down, and I want it to be a little bit random. So what I do is I actually barely hold onto the brush and I let it twist and twirl. I just kind of twist and twirl and pivot it in my hands. Okay, and the reason I do that is because it gives me more of a random line. Now I don't want that to go right off the corner because I think it looks a little bit nicer if it's not going right off the corner, because then people's attention could just kind of slip right off the edge of your paper. I don't want that. And then I'm going to throw on a little branch, little stem off there for some berries. I'm just going to kind of, by going for my reference photo and also just kind of seeing where I have bumps on my my paper, I am just going to add kind of stems here and there, again, straight up and down. My brush is at a 90-degree angle with my paper. Anytime where I twirled my brush and I got a nice little bump, that's a great place to add a berry. Now overall I really like this paper. However, I have had a couple sheets that have some odd like sizing issues, but where this is my sketchbook, not worried about it. I'm just gonna paint and have a good old time. But that's the only downside I've seen to this particular sketchbook, is that I've had that issue with some of the with a couple of the sheets. I'm not sure what's going on. It's almost as if you had lotion on your hands and you wiped, you brushed off some eraser crumbs. That's kind of the only thing it reminds me of. I'm going to grab some Gamboge, Permanent Gamboge, also called New Gamboge. And I'm going to grab a little bit of the Scarlet. And I'll also grab a little bit of the Magenta to start off with. And let's see, my brush has the magenta on it. I'm going to pick up some of the yellow, and I am going to just I'm going to start at the top, I'm going to work my way down. I am going to throw on a little little leaf. So again, I'm going to start at the tip of my brush. I'm going to press, and I'm going to lift. Now that's pretty pale. I do want this picture to be kind of a little bit softer, but I think I want a little bit more color than that, and I think I'll grab a little bit. Oh, that's a burnt sienna. I'm just sticking to my palette. I should have taken those pans out and put them in their own tray, because sometimes I get confused when I have all these colors just right out at my disposal. So I often will just keep a little bit of a little, like, one of the trays from one of the small palettes. I had a set of the Schminke Academy, and I took the tray out of that because I also had a bunch of the Schminke Horadam, and I wanted to put them all in the same palette, so I just took out the tray so I could use poster putty to tack them all in. And so I had that extra tray, and that is really handy for when I'm, you know, I just want to use a few colors from this big tin. I don't get confused with what else is on the docket. And I'm going to throw a little bit more of that yellow in there too. I just love the shape that my leaves go, like when I'm doing this, these are kind of like one stroke flowers, or leaves rather. I just feel like I get a really pretty shape. And then I can just kind of drip in the other colors if I don't get quite the color range that I want in there. Grab some of the magenta, add some turquoise to it. I feel like I want to make a little bit of a purpley tone on this one and back. And I'm just going to let them mellow out and do their thing. Okay, let's see. I like that purpley color. Won't we do that over here? Yeah, this paper is strange. I've got a real weird resist thing happening here. But I'm not hating it. Look at that. It doesn't look like I have wax down on my paper or something. That is so wild. That's wild. I don't hate it though. It's actually kind of a fun challenge. But you know, I think it's because I embrace this project as being just a warm up, because I have another big project I want to start. So I think a lot of like when you're creating, it goes to mindset, and if you're in that kind of like, you know, good mindset, nothing's going to get you down, and you're just going to create. Like I had no big expectations for this. I'm just going to have fun. And then this paint's just acting weird, and I mean the paper's acting weird, but I'm embracing it because I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen. I took some Viridian and added it to the yellow and also a little bit of red, so I got more of like an olive green color. I think I'm going to add one more little leaf right there. This paper is so funny. It was the last two sheets, and the sheets prior to that worked fine in this book. That is so funny. So I got some weird blending there that I'm not really that crazy about. So what I'm going to do is dry my brush off and just kind of lift out some of that water. And maybe go back in with some pigment. I think I had that mix maybe a little too wet. I'm liking it though. I mean, even though it's not acting as expected, I'm still enjoying it. And I want to get back to that purple. I wonder what kind of purple I would get. I'm assuming a really gray one. If I took this turquoise and I took that Scarlet. It's kind of like a gray. It's very gray. Ooh, that would kind of be pretty on the branch too. Add a little bit of that to some of the branch. Right on the edge, it'll give a little bit of a nice shadow. This paper is wild. I cannot believe how, like, it's just, it must have just have extra sizing on it or something. It's just acting so funny. Oh, it's interesting though. I'm not like, it's not stressing me out or anything. I'm just kind of like, that's pretty cool. I would not recommend a paper that's acting like that, honestly, because I think it could bother people. But it's kind of kind of interesting. I'm adding a little bit of that into that leaf. Ooh, that's pretty. I like those colors. So if you have some paper that's kind of like flummoxing you, try this. Why not? The still life I'm going to be setting up is it's one with a bunch of glass flower frogs, and I know it's going to be a very challenging piece, so I wanted something just to kind of knock the dust off the brushes. Isn't this paper funny though? Huh. The first half of the sketchbook, actually, it seems to be the second half, but that doesn't really make sense. First half of the sketchbook behaved very, very normal. Taking some Gamboge and Viridian, and throw that right in the center. And let's do another leaf right out here. It's like Zen. It's totally Zen feeling. Look at that. It just like wants to repel the paint. Isn't that funny? And I'm so not even bothered. I think I'm going to add a little turquoise to that leaf. If you have a paper like this, sometimes wetting it and blotting it can remove some excess sizing if that's the issue. Do a little red around the edges. And maybe here as well. Maybe even a little purple. I love that kind of like a crispy turning autumn leaf, very subtle autumn leaf look it's getting. All right, up here we'll do another green one. I feel like a big brush also helps you kind of loosen up. This leaf is kind of turned. I'm going to grab some of the purpley color. Just let the colors melt into one another. And get that little stem back onto the main branch. Let's grab some, let's grab a little Gamboge. The Turner Gamboge is extremely transparent. So if you've been, and it's got warm undertones. So if you've struggled finding a good warm undertoned yellow, give that a look. Oh, and also I did want to remind you my hand painted holiday course is on sale for $29 with the coupon code JOY2020 if you want to check that out. And I just added 3 new cards to it, so if you do have the class and you haven't been in the classroom this year, make sure you go in there and you check that out, because I just added that last week, added 3 new lessons. Look at this. It's like there's Vaseline on the paper or something. It does not want to grab that. That is so funny. I'll put a link to that class with a coupon code in the video description if you want to check it out. So since those are really puddly and wet, I'm just going to pick up the Scarlet right from the pan. So it's kind of thick and pasty on my brush. And I'm going to add it in there and try to add some little bit of veining while I'm at it. Ooh, that's pretty, I like that. I'm feeling much more relaxed this week. This was a fun color palette. I just kind of like let the colors just mingle together. This is a fun color palette. I'll type it up down below. But it's just got some unusual colors. I think that's fun. Sometimes I like to do that. Take colors. Like I rarely use Quin Magenta. I'll use Quin Rose a lot, but I rarely use Quin Magenta. And it's just kind of it's so purple leaning that it just gives you some really interesting mixes. What are you doing there, brush? You're acting weird. Stop acting out, brush. We got enough rebellion from the paper. We don't need it from the brush too. This is a Creative Mark Mimic brushes. They are my favorite. They're in my signature sets, my watercolor signature sets. But you can get them on their own. They are a wonderful brush. Actually, I don't think I've disliked any of the Creative Mark brushes that I've used. I like their Mimic hog brushes as well. If you like to use hog bristle brushes for oil painting or for acrylics, they're the first brushes I found that actually act like a hog brush. And I do still use hog brushes because, you know, for the longest time, synthetics, you would just go through so many. And, you know, I think of plastic in the landfill versus, you know, when they use the hog bristles, that's a byproduct of, you know, that's kind of like them using all of the animal that's left over from like the meat industry. In case you don't know, I eat a plant-based diet. I've been plant-based since I was 18. A vegan diet, but, you know, I do have some like paper that's got gelatin sizing or paints with oxgal and stuff, so I don't like to use the word vegan completely for that, just for that purpose, but diet anyway. So I try to do the kindest, least environmentally problematic supplies and stuff because I want, you know, I don't want to, or I want to have as small, the smallest footprint as I can have. And see, when you have a good round brush, you can get a teeny tiny little line when you want to, so, you know, you don't need to switch. Now make sure your paper's dry. That's not dry, it's feathering. Those were pretty dry, so I've got a nice crisp line there. So just kind of, if you want a crisp line, make sure that your paper is dry. Oh, I'm really liking this. Except for that, you know, fuzzy line I got going on there. Maybe I'll just wet that leaf and paint it some more. Yeah, this paper is very heavily sized. Which actually, if you were going to buy this and stretch it, and like, you know, dunk it in the tub and, you know, fully soak it and then stretch it, that would be beneficial. But in a sketchbook, it can be a little, if I tried to do my glass still life on this paper, I would not have gotten far before I decided to grab a different paper. My signature sets come with Fabriano Artistico, which actually is a vegan-sized paper. It's a nice paper. I like that. I like Arches. Arches is a little bit more heavily sized because it uses the gelatins. Well, it uses the gelatin sizing, so it just is a little bit harder sized because of that. It just depends on what you prefer, honestly. So you could use sap green if you prefer. I usually like sap green. However, I wanted just to do something different today, so that's why I use the Pthalo Green. I think here pretty soon I just need to leave this poor leaf alone. All right. This is one of those low and slow paintings. It's like, if painting was a crock pot, this would be the painting. You know, take all day, guys. You're having the holiday stress, the hustle and bustle, even though there's less hustling and bustling this year because we're not allowed to. it still can be stressful. You know, it still can be stressful. So take a break, do some painting, enjoy. Everyone talks about self-care. I think that painting definitely would be self-care. Open up that drawer of supplies. Don't have expectations. Or just have the expectation to enjoy yourself. Put on some music or follow along with a tutorial. And let's see, we'll do another one of those little yellow guys right here. See how the brush feels on the paper and enjoy. That red's a little too bright. I'm just kind of dancing around my palette saying, what do I have that I can mute this down with a little bit? And I'm just grabbing color until I'm pleased with what I have. I like to let my colors just kind of do their thing. Sometimes you gotta let go of the control and the expectations and let your paint do what it wants to do, especially with watercolor. Let's see, I think I want a little bit of burnt umber in there. It's funny, I've got a reference photo open from Pixabay on my computer, but I'm really not, other than that first branch that I put in there, I'm really not going by it. I'm going to drip some purple into those, but I don't want it too wet because I've already got, the paper's pretty wet. I'm going to do the magenta and the turquoise. And it's not going to make a real strong purple because the blue's not very strong. But because of that, you know, I'm not going to be getting green. It's not going to be doing anything weird to me. It's just going to be real muted. I could do a little magenta on its own even. Watch the drips on your ferrule. You don't want that them to come in and spoil your party. Spoil your party. If you want, you can use a credit card scraper to scrape some veins in here, but I don't think I want that the physical texture on my paper like that, so I think I'm going to leave it as it is. Now I'm going to do some berries, and I think I'm going to start by mixing the Quin Magenta and the Scarlet. I do not use the permanent Scarlet very often, to be honest. Look at that red though, isn't that pretty? All right, I might want to switch brushes, but let's just see what this guy wants to do. Let's put a berry here. Ooh, I think I could just want to let the skips, use the skips in the paper to give me my highlight. I kind of like that. And let's do one over here. Be careful around your wet leaves. Oh, I kind of just love this, like, unpredictability. And if I want to do like a softer highlight, I can just kind of wipe away with a fairly dry brush. Even with the Quin Magenta, this paper is so, oops. Oh, I think I cut that drip before it slipped off my brush. The paper is so heavily sized that I don't even have to worry about it. I think I will take some of that turquoise though and make myself a nice dark shadow color, turquoise and the magenta. Ooh, I really like this color palette. I think I'm definitely going to have to save my swatch for a Well, we all know I save my swatches if you watch my junk drawer video. I think I'm gonna have to save that one intentionally to use again. Let's see. I'm gonna do a cluster of berries over here, I think. I think I'll just kind of splotch on some color. Let's see, I don't know how many I want. Seems to be the wetter your paint is on this paper, the more it wants to like resist, which is very interesting. Let's see. Maybe we'll do a couple down here. All right, let's dry the brush off and let's grab the magenta on its own, pretty pasty. If I want a line to stay where I put it, even if I'm going in next to something wet or over something wet, I just make sure my paint is thick, like right from the pan. And I'm going to try a little burnt umber with that. Let's see what that does to our magenta. Oh, that makes a really beautiful cranberry, deep cranberry color we can add for a little shading. Hopefully, yeah, that's on screen. That's good. I'll probably just leave that white splash right on there because then it gives me kind of a natural highlight. Oops, that's not the red I was using. Gonna add a little bit of red in here. The Scarlet, I mean. And I am going to just add some little stems to bring it back to the branch. Any of these colors that I've used so far are going to be fine for this. They can vary a bit from the main branch. All right, I think we're just about done here. If you want to add a soft highlight to some of these berries while they're still wet, taking a little Q-tip and just kind of rolling it in the surface will give you just that really soft kind of waxy sheen that berries have when they are, you know, when they're wild, when they're growing. Wild berries. And really, you don't have to get like anything special for the Q-tips. I have found that the cheapest Q-tips from like your dollar store will work great for this. I do try to find ones that have paper sticks just so they'll break down. They won't like last forever in the landfill. But they work better, actually better than like Q-tip brand because they don't have so much fluff on them. So it's handy to have a pack of those in your art studio. So now it's kind of like, okay, what do I want to do? I don't want a ton of detail on this, but I think I might just add a few little hints of veining here and there. And it's also a great way to use up some of that paint we've got on our palette already. So there's two reasons I like to do this. A, I don't like to waste paint, so I can use what's left on my mixing area. But B, the other thing I like about this is that I know it's gonna match. I'm not gonna have some crazy wackadoodle color in my, you know, on my painting because I'm not gonna dip into the wrong color by mistake. Everything is naturally muted on my mixing area because I've been mixing it all around. And it's just going to be subtle, and at this stage of the game I want subtle. Now I'm going to stick with this brush because I can get a fine point with it, but if you want to switch to a smaller brush for this so you don't carry so much paint, you don't have to worry about overdoing it, then by all means switch to a smaller brush. That's completely up to you. I like to just kind of hit this with a heat tool or let it dry completely before I go and do any veining because I'll get a feathered edge if it's damp like we did there. Remember when we were using that? So what do we have for a color here anyway? I don't even know. I've got such a mix. We've got kind of a brown, brown mix here. I think I want a little more yellow in it. Oh, that's good. And let's see if that's dark enough to stand up over here on this leaf. Now I am resting my wrist on the paper. That's another reason I like to dry it, because that way I don't set my hand in like a wet berry and then like end up stamping more berries all over my painting because I messed up. Now, you know, honestly, if you do make a mistake, you get a little spatter of paint where you don't want it, that is an excellent place for you to put a berry. But it's nice when, you know, you're not forced into berry placement. And remember, there is a little bit of a shift from wet to dry, so even if your veins look a little strong, just keep in mind that they're going to lighten up as they dry. So try not to be nervous about this. You don't want them to be too light, or you're just not gonna, you're not even gonna be able to notice them when they're dry. And you might even want like a more of a shadow on one side of like the center vein here and there. But I just love using kind of neutral mixes that are on my palette because I know it's gonna work, it's gonna match. It's going to be fine because I have so many other parts of the painting where I've used those colors. Like I want a nice bit of dark on this half. And I'm going to soften that. You got to be careful on this paper though, softening anything, or you might just lift up everything that's underneath. I think I probably just did right there. That's alright. Watercolor can be, if you lifted it up by mistake, you can lift it up more and just redo that section. It's certainly not anything to fret about. That's a little too dark and a little too strong. I'll find any little just bits of color to grab off my palette. The center vein can add a little direction and shape. But you don't have to do too much of it really to get the impact. And subtlety, subtlety is important. Subtlety is key here. Oh, I kind of want to add, there's like a little turn on that leaf there. And I really kind of want to get that. So let's see if I could sneak that little leaf turn in there. I think I can, yeah. And I can just add a little bit of dark behind it. Sneaky. There, oh, that's pretty. I think so anyway. And really, honestly, I'm the only one that has to really like it. It's my painting. If you clicked on the video, you probably like it just fine. A little more red to this guy here on this side. I feel like this painting is a little musical. You know, it's got some, it's almost like the feathers, I always call leaves feathers, I don't know why. It's almost like the leaves are notes being played and they're, you know, dancing on the lines, on the music. What do you call that, where all the notes live? You know, the lines. They're on the lines. The line would be the branch. And they're little notes making their music. I'm sure there are a lot of people yelling at the computer right now saying, it's called a blah blah blah, Lindsay. I wonder how many people are going to type what it's called in the comments. I wonder who's going to be the first to tell me what it's called in the comments. And I'll be smarter by the time when the comments arrive because then I'll know what it is. Oh, this is fun. I'm really enjoying this painting. And I woke up this morning and I didn't know I was going to paint this painting. You know, because sometimes you plan your paintings and you've got like, yeah, I'm going to paint this today. This is what I'm doing. But other times you have a wonderful surprise. It's like, I didn't know when I woke up this morning I was gonna paint this painting. I didn't know when I was eating my lunch an hour ago that I was gonna come down here and this is what I was gonna make. I didn't know until I put brush to paper, really. And I think that's kind of amazing, isn't it? That's kind of neat. We get to create things. Aren't we lucky? We get to make something that's never been before. And we get to make it the way we want it. We have complete control. I like red a lot, so I do like to sneak in more red whenever I can. It's my favorite color. It makes me happy. I like red lipstick. And red. I'm going to paint my nails. I'll probably paint them red. I think I'm happy with that. Now, of course, you could do little accents with a white pen if you wanted to, but I think there's enough white happening here that that's really not necessary. The other thing I like about this is I think that this painting would also work as landscape mode. So I just think it's very simple, it's very calming, and if you need some art like that in your life, I hope you will grab your brush, grab one round brush that get your favorite round brush. Anything between a size 8 and 12, you pick your favorite one out of that pot. You know, use it or lose it, friends. Pick that out of the pot, grab your paints, sit down with a good piece of paper, and paint this. I think you'll be happy that you did. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. I'll have a link to my signature set at Jerry's Artorama linked down below, as well as a link to my class, my hand-painted holiday class that's on sale, so that you can snag that if you've been waiting for it. Or if you're already enrolled, you have access to those 3 extra cards. You never have to pay more. If you bought one of my classes and I add more to it, you don't pay again. You just get access to that when I add it. So, so enjoy it, you know? Have fun. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. A Festivus for the rest of us. That's all for today, guys. We'll see you later. Until next time, happy crafting.